All right, guys. So you're thinking about making a move and you want to move out of state, but you're not sure where. Maybe you've been thinking about Maine. Maybe you've never thought about Maine, but here you are watching this video, and now you might consider it. Maine was one of the most moved to states in 2023, and actually by a survey that was done by Atlas Moving Lines, Maine was the number one moved to state in terms of inbound and outbound traffic in 2023. So, as I like to say, Maine's not a secret anymore up here in the great Northeast, the last state before you get into Canada. In this episode, we're going to talk about the real estate market for April. I'm also going to show you where the bulk of people live in Maine. Maine is the most rural state in the country, or at least east, not in the country, but probably east of the Mississippi. But it's deceiving because, yes, we do have power. Yes, we do have running water. But the majority of people live in only 4 or 5 counties. While Maine is pretty rural, there's a lot of Maine that's not even populated or have people in them. That's why it's so rural. But we're going to get into that. We're going to get into every county, what the median sale price in April was for every county, what the median list price was in those counties. I'm going to show you where the population lives, what the average annual taxes are of those counties. And then we're going to dive into kind of the 5 biggest counties of where people live, which is York, Cumberland, Androscoggin, Kennebec, and Sagadahoc. So if that's of interest to you, you're thinking about making a move, maybe you've never considered Maine, maybe you are considering Maine and just looking for more details, then sit back because this episode is going to be for you. All right, guys, we're going to get into that right now. All right, guys, welcome to the channel here at Live Life in Maine. My name is Scott Tebow. I'm a real estate broker agent with EXP Realty. I'm an investor. I flip properties. I own multiple properties. I actually own a business. My wife and I own actually a child care center as well. I should say she owns it, and I just kind of handle the financial side of the house. We're a father. I'm a father of 5, obviously a husband. I'm a veteran, and I am a Mainer, or as us Mainers call us, maniacs. Somebody who has lived here, was born here really, and has lived here almost his entire life. So I was born here, raised here, went off for about 10 years while I was exploring the world, actually on the military's dime in the United States Navy. Came back in the mid to late 90s. Been back ever since. I love it here. So this channel is all about helping you get informed, stay informed of what's going on in Maine in case you're looking to make a move. So whether it's in 3 weeks, 3 months, or 3 years, that's the purpose of the channel, just to educate you, to help you make that smooth move. So I would encourage you, if this information is going to be helpful to you in the process, to like and subscribe to this channel as I drop content on a regular basis. All right, guys, as I said, we're going to get into Maine. And right now I'm going to throw up on the screen a map of Maine based upon counties. And I'm actually on that map going to show you where the majority of population lives. And I got some cheat sheets here so I can talk to you about it while you're looking at it on the screen. So if you look at the map of Maine on the left-hand side of this page, you're going to see that the red, the kind of the reddish counties, that's where the bulk of people live in Maine. What's interesting is, of those red counties, which makes up 61% of the population, that's only 14% of the state as a whole. So, in other words, 61% of the population, or about 850,000 people, live in 14% of the state. Which, if you break down the numbers, it's 183 people per square mile in kind of those red counties that we're talking about, which is Cumberland, Androscoggin, York, Sagadahoc, Kennebec, and Lincoln along the coast and right when you come into the state of Maine. If you also look, you're going to see kind of the bluish, lighter blue. That's where the bulk, that's where kind of the rest of the people live. That's 21% of the population, about 300,000 people. And that actually makes up about 21% of the state. So in total, guys, the red and the light blue makes up 82% of the population, but that only covers 35% of the state. This is why Maine is considered one of the most rural states in the in the country. But actually, when you get here, you're going to realize it's not as rural as you think it would be, because if you stay in those red or blue counties, it's not as rural as if you go kind of those darker counties: Oxford, Franklin, Somerset, Penobscot, Piscataquis, Aroostook. I actually have Somerset on here twice. So Somerset, the black Somerset, if you're looking at this map, is actually Piscataquis, and Washington counties. Those counties make up 65% of the state, guys, but only 19% of the population live there. And it's average of 12 people per square mile. Actually, if you look at the Somerset and Piscataquis counties, even Aroostook to the west, there's pretty much nobody living in a lot of those counties. It's the Allagash, it's a lot of woods. Even northern Franklin and northern Oxford, it's pretty desolate, pretty isolated. You got a lot of animals, obviously bears and deer and moose up there, but not a lot of people live up there. So as I said, the majority of people, about over 1.1, there's only like 1.4 in the state. 1.1 million, live in those red and blue counties, and specifically in those red counties, which I said earlier. So when we look at that population and we look at April, Maine's population of April, and I have those counties, you'll see that the median home price I did these in order, in Cumberland, is $550,000. This is for the month of April, where the median home price in Androscoggin, which is kind of just north of Cumberland, is $297,756. York County, first county you come into, the county that I live into, $500,000. Sagadahoc, which is kind of heading up down east, we call that the mid-coast. When you get out of Cumberland and you're starting to head right as you're going up the state along the coast, the first county you're going to run into is Sagadahoc. That's kind of where Bath and Brunswick is. You'll see that the median home price there is $515,000. And then you got Kennebec. Kennebec is like where the state capital is, Augusta. The median home price there is $296,000. I kind of call that Central Maine, even though Kennebec, if you look at it on the map, doesn't look like Central Maine. It kind of is, because when you take out a lot of that population or a lot of that state, because there's nobody living there, that's why we call Augusta, Waterville, Central Maine, because we're not really counting the Allagash and all that as part of Maine. That's really north and northwest Maine, but in terms of population, nobody lives there. So we kind of call, as I said, Augusta, even Lewiston, Auburn, up through Bangor, central and northern Maine, even though Bangor is not northern Maine, it's really central Maine. And then you got Lincoln, which is just north of Sagadahoc. Again, you're continuing up the coast like you're going up to Bar Harbor. The median home price is $370,000. If you look at the blue counties, however, you see those prices are a little bit lower. So as you get away from the coast, the median home price in Waldo is $378,000. Penobscot, which is up where Bangor is $260,000. Hancock, again, along the coast. Now you're getting in the Mount Desert Bar Harbor area. It's $369,000. And then Knox County, which is surprising to me. This is like right on, if you're looking at Bar Harbor, you look to the left, that's kind of Knox County. If you're on Mount Desert Island or whatever, you look to the right, that's Hancock. Knox County, pretty expensive county, very beautiful homes on those rocky cliffs. 400 and I think that says 85,000. I put it in white, and I should have put it in black because the background doesn't show up on this. But when you look at the mill rates, right? So if you look at the average tax rate in Cumberland, now Cumberland makes up Portland, Windham, Westbrook, South Portland. It's the biggest county in terms of population, where the majority of people live. 311,623 people living in Cumberland with the median home price of $550,000. The average sales tax, property tax on an annual basis. Now, this is the median. That means some towns are more and some towns are less, or cities, because we do have towns and cities kind of mixed in those counties, is $6,600. Coming into York County, which is the first county, again, the county I live in Biddeford, the city of Biddeford, that county is $5,250. Sagadahoc, pretty expensive, again, along the coast, $5,974. Then you got, if I do these in order, if you got Androscoggin, which is where Lewiston Auburn is. You got 4,168. Kennebec, 3,000, which is where Augusta Waterville is, 3,315, and then Lincoln, 3,100. Those are the median prices, annual taxes. If you're looking to buy a house, you can see it on the map. The point I'm trying to make, guys, is Maine's property taxes actually cover the school budgets as well. So I don't know how it is in every state, but part of the property taxes we pay, about half of the property taxes we pay, go to the schools. And if you look at this, and you can drop a line, or you can see below in the description, I have some of the statistics of schools. Maine schools are actually higher than the national average in just about every category in terms of education, from reading, writing, and arithmetic, STEM, graduation, all that stuff. They're higher than the national average. And some of these schools, specifically like if you're talking Cumberland or York counties, you got Yarmouth, you got Falmouth, you got Cape Elizabeth, you got some academies like Thornton Academy, Burr Oak Academy. Some of these schools are pretty high in terms of their educational statistics and their academia in terms of high school kids, even elementary and grade school, and even preschool kids. So some of these, they follow the money, right? The more the taxes are, the more goes into the school system. Obviously, the results are you have some more education and higher education standards and scores than you do across most of the rest of the country. But I wanted to show that to you because I used to get this a lot. I guess Maine's not a secret as much anymore. People are like, Maine, what's in Maine, right? They if they've never been here, and they don't realize it until they get here, especially when you're coming into the state. There's a lot. I won't say a lot. I mean, I'm not going to compare it to like Chicago or Philadelphia or New York or Dallas. We'll never have that kind of population. But Maine is not as rural as you think it is until you get up past when you get up past Lewiston, Auburn. I'm going to even say Freeport, close to Augusta, but more Freeport north. It starts to get more rural, that central Maine. But it's not as rural as you think it is. And, it's why Maine is a very popular place to live because you have that mix of somewhat, your neighbors right on top of you. The prices of houses are still the lowest price compared to New England. That being said, they're not the cheapest in the country. I think Maine ranks probably on a scale of 1 to 50, California being the most expensive, or Hawaii with 50, and like Mississippi being the least expensive. Maine's kind of more along that top third, somewhere in the 26th to 30th most expensive state to live into. It isn't cheap to live in Maine. I'm not going to deny that, but some of the trade-offs, the quality of life, the lack of people being right on top of you, the safety. A lot of people come to Maine because we are the safest state, or one of the top 3 every year. We're either first, second, or third top safest states in the country. And a lot of people are loving it and getting out of the crazy hustle and bustle. So you can look at those statistics, but I just want to show you kind of where the most of the population lives, which is again in those red and kind of lighter blue counties. Really red is where the most people live, again 61% of the population. So don't let Maine deceive you. It's not as rural as you think it is. And yes, we've had electricity and running water for quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I have fiber optics, which is pretty popular around some of these metropolitan areas. I have fiber optics right to my house, where I have a gig of data up and down. I'm not saying it's all like that across the state. Actually, Maine was one of the first, from what I understand, one of the first states to introduce Starlink. They were one of the guinea pigs, because there is a lot of rural Maine, especially when you get up in those darker blue and black counties that I've highlighted here. You have a lot of ruralness, and you don't have data. So a lot of people have Starlink, which was a guinea pig, which I heard is going pretty well. They love their service. So that being said, let's dive into 5 counties. These 5 counties are where most of the people live, guys. These are the numbers for April. Here it is, the first week in May. But I thought it'd be important for you to understand where the majority of people live and what the prices are in those areas. And look at some of the trends, because these trends are starting to point out some things that I think we've all known, but it's starting to happen, especially with the Fed saying they're not going to reduce interest rates. And credit cards are at an all-time high. We have more credit card debt in this country than we've ever had. People realize that the crazy prices they were getting in 21, late 2021, early 22. They're not as crazy anymore as they used to be. They're starting to come down. These trends are going to show you this as I dive into these counties. So just give you an update of what's going on in April. And we're going to start in York County. So if you're coming into Maine, coming in through New Hampshire, the first county is York County. That county has, has York, Maine, which is a town, has a Gunquit, has Kennebunk Port, very popular tourist attraction. You have Biddeford, Saco. Those counties a little bit further west, you have Sanford. Those cities and those towns make up York County. There's more than that, but that's pretty much York County, the first county that you come into the state of Maine. And where a lot of people live, let's see, 223 people live in York County, second largest county in terms of population in the state of Maine. But the median list price in April, now this is list only, this is what they sold for, was $564,450. What's interesting though, guys, is what sold in April. The median sold price in April was $500,000. So started at 564, probably from a month prior, sold at 500. Quite a disparity, So prices may be still listing higher, but they're starting to come down in sold prices, which is this one is 500,000. If you look at that, if you look at the statistic from a year ago, just look at April of 2023, you'll see that the median list was 484,900 and the median sold was 491,000. So they have gone up a little bit in that year's time frame, but if you look at the difference between March and April, they actually have gone down. So while they went up from a year ago, from 491,000 that was sold to 500,000 this year in April, they actually went down from last month, 516,400. So that's interesting when you're starting to see houses kind of settle in or drop a little bit. I honestly believe it's because of interest rates, obviously. It's still because, the feds didn't drop rates that they said they would. And inflation, and this isn't political, guys, but inflation is still really high. You don't get the true numbers out of the White House, right? Everybody's saying everything's good, but if you dig into the numbers, inflation is still pretty high. And the job market the job industry isn't as good. Sure, a report came out saying they added jobs, but a lot of full-time jobs went away and part-time jobs or people getting second jobs are added. So it's not a true indication of what's going on in the country. And I think you and I and many other people know this, and we feel this when we go to the grocery stores or when we paying our bills. It's not as rosy and as rainbowish. The rainbow colors aren't as pronounced as what the White House would have us believe. Again, not trying to make a political statement, just stating the facts. Let's look at the active listings. So if you look at April of 2023, there was 236 active listings on the market. That's gone up in April of 2024. Now we're at 311. But look at the pending listings. Pending listings are down, right? There were 175 pending listings in April of 2023. There's only 132 in April of 2024. That pending means they haven't closed. They're under contract, still going through escrow, still going through title, haven't closed yet. Sold, 153 sold in April of this past year, where 129 sold last year. But there's a lot more listings, more and more. What I see is more and more people are starting to put their houses on the market because of one of two things. They realize they're probably at the top and they don't want to start seeing the market go down, so they're trying to get as much equity as possible. The other one is, as I said, credit card debt is pretty high. So some of these people are like, we got to pay off some of these bills. Let's try to capitalize on the market while we can before we start seeing a dip. And I do think in the next second and third quarter of this year, it's going to be an interesting time across the country and an interesting time in Maine to buy property. As interest rates aren't going to change that much, apparently, I still think they're going to be around 6 by the end of the year, as I've said in other videos. But they haven't changed that much. The Feds are saying they can't fight off inflation. There's a bunch of reasons for that, but that's kind of where we are for April in York County. And then this is another interesting statistic, guys. months of inventory, right? So in April of 2024, just last month, we had 2.03 months, where a year ago we had 1.83 months. So again, inventory, which is saturation rate, right? A good balanced market is 4 to 5 to 6 months. If you have, you know, 4 or 5 months of days, inventory, that's going to balance sellers and buyers, right? Right now, it's still been a seller's market. It's been a seller's market for the last 3 years. But that's starting to come down, and you're seeing houses prices starting to come down in the market. The days, the inventory, the days on market is going up, and the inventory is going up across the country because houses aren't moving as fast as they used to. But York County, guys, very desirable place to live. You're close to Boston. You're close to New Hampshire. There's a lot of jobs in York County. You're close to Portland if you don't want to be right in Portland or around the suburbs of Portland where all the hustle and bustle is. I mean, it's a relative term for us. Maine is what hustle and bustle is. Again, it's not like you're in Boston or traffic like that. But obviously, the Portland market has much more hustle and bustle, if you will, than any other part of the state. And if you want to live right out on the outskirts, or be, you know, I'm 15, 20 minutes from Portland. So go up there for dinner or see a play, or go out on the Casco Bay, go to the islands, whatever. But not right downtown or right in the hustle and bustle of Portland, Maine, is York County, and very favorable place. York County is where all the sandy beaches are. Most of the sandy beaches are, right? As you get out of York County, after you get up past Old Orchard and Scarborough, it really starts to get rocky. So, you know, you have these little inlets of sandy beaches, but for the most part, it's rocky cliffs all the way up the rest of the coast. So that's where a lot of people go on the beach, is in York County, because the beaches are flat and sandy. All right, leaving York County, heading a little bit north, you're going to get into Cumberland County. And as I said already, Cumberland County is where Portland is, where South Portland is, where Cape Elizabeth is, where Scarborough is, where Westbrook is, Windham, Yarmouth, Falmouth, all these counties, all these towns and cities going up the coast. It's where the most people live, 311,623 people, according to my latest statistics and population on the latest data that was taken in the expected growth rate in 2024. The median list price in April of 2024 in Cumberland County was almost $600,000, guys, $599,000. But again, what they sold was $550,000, a $49,000 decrease. So you're starting to see prices come down. Look at April of 2023, where the median sold price was $560,000, but the list price was higher at the list price was lower at $571,000. So yes, they went up last month from $545,000 to $550,000. It's hard to just go month to month. I know I just did in York County, but really, when you're looking at statistics, you really need a 6 to 12 month snapshot to really try to get a trend. I don't think I'm ready to predict some trends. I do see housing prices kind of flattening out and bottoming out now. They may dip down a little bit. It all depends on what goes on with these interest rates and what the inventory looks like, because obviously, supply and demand, if you get more supply, it should drop the prices down a little bit. But we'll see. Active listings in April, there was 277 single family homes. And again, let me caveat this, guys, by saying this is all single family homes. These are not condos. These are not apartments. These are not mobile homes, all that. These are single family homes. If you want information on some of that data, drop me a line, or send me a text, or give me an email, and I'll send you some personal information on what you're specifically looking for. But I just generally am talking about single family homes, as I have gotten a lot of people from YouTube moving to Maine, and I've helped quite a few people do this over the last year. So me and my team, I should say. April, back to Cumberland County, 277 active listings, 158 are under contract. They're going through the escrow process, hasn't closed, and 175 sold, compared to this time last year, 178 sold, pending 233, and active was 223. So more listings, less pending and a little less sold. Prices up a little bit, but not a lot. And really this is the trend I am starting to see, is the saturation rate or the inventory, right? It keeps on creeping up. April is 1.58, where last year it was 1.25. Now the real test is going to be this summer when things really heat up, what the inventory looks like. Most people who buy in Maine buy from about April, I'm going to say, some in March, but April right through Thanksgiving, and then it kind of slows right down, especially in the winter months. Not saying that there's nothing that's happening here, because there's still a lot that's happening here in the real estate market in the winter months, but the hot months are really May, June, July, August, September, right up through probably Columbus Day weekend, October. But the market really is, in my opinion, is from April to right through to Thanksgiving. All right, guys, if we're going to continue up from Cumberland County, we're going to head up to Androscoggin County. This is where Lewiston and Auburn is. Lewiston and Auburn is the second largest metropolitan area behind Portland. But the prices are pretty different because you're getting away from that coast, right? When you get in more inland, prices definitely start dropping. So in Androscoggin County, the median list price in April of 2024 was $329,000. But houses only sold at a clip at about $310,000 in April. Compared to this time last year, median list price was $315,000, but the sold was $311,500. So, guys, what I'm starting to see here is, I think sellers are still saying, they're trying to put the house on the market. Realtors, real estate agents, if you're not a realtor, if you're not a broker, or you're not associated with the National Association of Realtors and you're a real estate agent, if you are, then you're a realtor. I think what you're starting to see is prices are being listed a little bit higher than what they're selling for. That's number one. And number two, sellers are starting to realize, I might be at the top of the market, and if I need to sell now, or I'm looking to sell, I better put my house on the market sooner rather than later, as houses might dip depending on, again, what's going on with inflation, interest rates, credit card debt, and the like. If you look at the active listings in Androscoggin, in April was 86, pending was 56, and sold was 79. Compare that a year ago, you had 79 active listings, so more listings this April than last April. You had a lot less closed listings this April than last April, 56 to 88. And you do have a few more sold listings, 79 versus 61 from April of 2023. And the months of inventory, now again, this is counterintuitive to me, because the months of inventory in April went down 1.09 months compared to 1.3 in April of 2023. So maybe it's because it's different per county. I shouldn't say maybe. It is different per county. I mean, I'm trying to help you get to your own answer. I actually pretty much understand why this is happening this way. The lower the median sale price, the lower the inventory. Because the lower the median sale price, the lower the inventory, because more people, specifically first-time home buyers, can buy houses in that pricing, versus when you're in the Cumberland and York counties, where it's tough to be a first-time home buyer in those counties. Not saying it isn't, but you need to be able to qualify for a $500,000 to $700,000 house as a first-time home buyer in those two counties. And a lot of people don't have, that type of money sitting aside for down payments, for closing costs, and to pay, the realtors. So, unless you get a lot of money saved up, most people that are living in Cumberland and York County, they are second-time home buyers, sold their houses, got some equity, and putting it to a new house. Where you get into the Androscoggin County market and the Kennebec County market, which I'm going to do next, housing prices a little lower, more suitable for first-time home buyers that can afford a $300,000 to $400,000 to $450,000 house. So they're looking at kind of those areas. A little bit more rural, but the inventory is a little bit less because you have more competition as you have more first-time home buyers. So let's drive up the coast and head up from Androscoggin when I had a little north east, if I will, northwest, northeast. It's more east, I think I say, from Lewiston, Auburn up until Augusta, which is the state capital, the second smallest state capital in the country, I think, behind North Dakota, if I'm, or South Dakota, one of those two, Bismarck, or what's St. Pierre is the capital of South Dakota. I'll have to go back to my geography lessons, but if you look at Kennebec County, again, like I was saying, between Androscoggin and Kennebec, median sold price April of 2024, $292,100 compared to the list price of $349,000. That's quite a drop, guys. Look at last year. This time the median sold price was $300,000, so it came down $8,000. The list price went up. Doesn't really matter what you listed for; it matters what you sell it for. So sellers are starting to see that maybe their houses aren't as valuable to buyers right now as they were a year ago. Not that they're as valuable, but you're dealing with interest rates that are just stubborn and not moving, and inflation's starting to catch up. Not to mention credit card debt is at an all-time high. So a lot of people are finding themselves in trouble with credit card debt. But again, Kennebec's more of a first-time home buyer. It can be more of a first-time home buyer market because prices are less expensive than in New York and Cumberland County. Let's look at the active listings in April. You had 183 active listings on the market in Kennebec County. You had 58 that are pending, and you have 84 that have sold in the month of April. And the inventory, again, kind of came down a little bit from the last 2 months, and then 3 months, actually 1, 2, 3, 4 months. Notice that's all winter months, though, December, January, February, March. So it doesn't surprise me. As you get away from the coast, you get more snow. We had some pretty good snowstorms in the state of Maine towards the latter part of the winter. A lot of it in Kennebec, central Maine area. Houses inventory came down because a lot of people weren't selling as many houses back. People were moving during those winter months, but inventory is starting to come down. 2.15 months, still not bad. A little over 60 days worth of inventory, but compared to this time last year, 1.83. So, inventory's gone up from this time last year, which is a good trend if you're a buyer in this market. And then finally, this is a county I haven't done that much. I kind of go up to Bangor, which is Penobscot, but I've heard a lot of people have commented and sent me messages asking me, why don't I just do Bangor versus the whole county? Because when I do the whole county of Penobscot County, it's kind of deceiving because really the industry and the market is the Bangor market, which is like the third largest market in the state of Maine. Bangor is the third largest market behind Lewiston and Auburn, and obviously behind Portland in the greater Portland area. But actually more people live in Sagadahoc, which is, again, one of those red counties, than they do in Penobscot when you just not just consider Bangor. So Sagadahoc, which is, again, coming up the coast, leaving Cumberland County, heading towards Bar Harbor, heading east up the coast. You're going to get into Sagadahoc. This is where Bath, Brunswick is. This is right along the coast. We call that the mid-coast. Median list price, which is interesting, $389,900, but what has sold was $515,000. So houses are coming in on the market cheaper, but they sold higher, obviously, from prior months that they were on the market. So probably the houses, I'd have to dig into this, but I'd have to say that those houses that are sold in April, $515,000, they were listings from most likely February and March that don't show in April for $515,000. Which is quite a substantially higher than it was this time last year, which is $347,500. Active listings in Sagadahoc County, 31, 14 are pending, and 26 sold, compared to this time last year, 37, 24, and 18. So kind of in the same realm. Active listings is a little down. Pending listings are way down. Sold listings are up. So more people are buying, even though there's a little bit less inventory in Sagadahoc County. Sagadahoc, I find kind of that area. I don't find it turning over as much as I do some other parts of the state of Maine in terms of houses being sold. A lot of people that live in those counties, Sagadahoc, Knox, Waldo, if they are from Maine, or if this is their primary residence, then they pretty much stay there a lot. I mean, it's when I say stay there a lot, I think the average person sells their house like every 7 years, and Saginaw is not like that at all. It's more like 12 to 15 years. There is a lot of vacation homes there though too, so those might turn over a little bit more. Second homes, people that are vacationing or own vacation homes up there, that may turn over a little bit more. But for the most part, the full time residents stay. And when you're heading up really mid coast, they're there a lot longer. The sale price of a house in terms of how often it turns over is a lot higher than the national average. And then if you look at the inventory of 1.19 months, kind of low, which is probably why the sale prices are high. Again, supply and demand. The higher the lower the demand, the lower the supply will, if you will. The higher demand, the higher the price. Guys, I don't know if this information made sense to you or not. What I can tell you is this. Maine is a very desirable state to move to. Whether you thought about this before or whether you're just looking at it, I just got an email from a guy. He reached out to me a couple of days ago, and they live in West Tennessee, and they're making a move because they feel like the West Tennessee market is kind of depressed. It's starting to go in the wrong direction. They don't want to go to Nashville and stuff like that. Too much craziness there. So they were talking about moving out of the States, and the name Maine came up, and he brought it up because he said it was kind of a joke, but it turned out not to be a joke because they started looking into this and like, all the things that are happening in Maine, look pretty pleasing to them. So they're interested in looking at a property, finding houses 30 minutes outside of Portland, very doable for what they have their budget. But what I can tell you guys is when I say a lot, you got to understand what I mean by a lot. It's not 10,000 people a day, but there are more and more people moving to Maine. The population, I think, grew by 43,000 people in the last 2 years since COVID. More and more people realize Maine's not a secret anymore, especially if you're living in kind of southern Maine or those lighter blue counties. Very desirable areas to live. Housing prices aren't crazy like some other parts of the country. They're higher, especially in southern Maine. They're going to be higher than a lot of the states in the south. The North Carolinas, the Alabamas, the Mississippis. They're going to be higher than those states. It's the Northeast. You are going to pay some taxes. You do have Maine. If you look at kind of my 5 G's and cheers of living in Maine, we do pay quite a bit in taxes, I say. I mean, when you look at New Hampshire and you look at Maine, they balance out only because most of New Hampshire's taxes are in their property, where they don't have a sales tax and all that. Where Maine, we have excise tax, we have sales tax, we have property tax. But again, a lot of our property taxes go to our schools. Half of our property tax goes to our school system, which is rated very high compared to the rest of the country. So I would take that trade-off. If I had to pay more money so the educational system was better and you had youngsters starting out more educated than in other parts of the country, I think that's a good trade-off. But what I'm trying to say is Maine is a very desirable area to live. It's not a secret anymore. More and more people are looking to move here. Quality of life, the safety, and just the one with nature, the scenery. It's such a beautiful state. You're seeing that more and more people are coming here. And I've interviewed some people, whether I've helped them buy homes here or not, or people that have moved here, and they tell me some of the horror shows that they came from. And some of these guys, one came from Florida, one came from Texas. I'm not trying to beat up on those states, but you hear about all the people moving there, but they're like, it's too much. You're actually seeing a lot of prices starting to drop, especially in northern Florida. But they're saying it's too much, and they're kind of getting away from that. The winters here aren't as rough as they used to be. Some people may say that's because of climate change. I don't know. Maybe it might be because of climate change. I mean, the climate is definitely changing. The question is it a trend that's going to continue, or are we in this cycle where 200 years ago maybe we experienced the same things, but nobody was recording what was going on in the climate. Who knows? I think the tale is still to be told, but it does look like the climate is definitely changing, because as a kid, when I was growing up in the state in Saco in York County, we used to get a ton of snow. We don't get as much snow anymore as we used to. So I don't know if it's changing or if it's going to go back to where it was, 10, 15, 20 years from now. Who knows? But the climate is definitely a little bit warmer. It's becoming more of a desirable state to move to. It's not as populated as a lot of these other states. The safety is still very high. We're very high in the safety board ratings. I hope we can stay that way as more people move here. That being said, we still are a very predominantly white state. I want to say like 92, 94% of the population is white. We are pretty much either European or French Canadian people, heritage. You don't see a lot of people from the southern hemisphere countries, or even on the other part of the world from Africa or some of these other countries. You don't see a lot of that in Maine. I think maybe it's because of the weather. But that being said, our educational systems are really high. Our crime is really low per capita, one of the safest states. The quality of life is pretty good. It's really great. And in Maine, guys, I'm biased. I have been all over this country, and I have traveled to a lot of the world. There's no other place I literally would rather live, especially in the summertime. It is just so picturesque and beautiful here. And there's so many things to do all 4 seasons, but in the summertime, it's like you feel like you're in heaven. If I've never been to heaven, obviously, but it's a great state to live in. So we help, guys. We do this all the time. We've helped a lot of people move here. We have a whole process. I gotta imagine it's pretty daunting if you're living in another state and you've never lived in Maine. What you're thinking. What it's going to be like to live here, to move here, what you got to go through. How do you find a house? How do you negotiate? How do you close? How do you do all that stuff? I can imagine it's kind of daunting, especially if you're moving from away, right? If you're not right next door in New Hampshire or even Massachusetts, but you can get up here in a couple hours. But if it's, you're a day away or many hours away, I can imagine it's pretty daunting. So we've helped a lot of people make that move, and there's a lot of things that we do that are maybe different than a traditional brokerage does, a traditional team that does here, especially from getting your house under contract to showing you it. So I'm going to produce a video here in my next episode of what it takes to move to Maine and the processes that we go through to help you. We've helped off this channel alone, guys, I've helped 9 or 10 people move here from other parts of the country. Just 3 in the month of April alone, and another one closing hopefully this week, maybe next week. Just waiting on a mortgage loan inspection. But helped a lot of people move here, guys. It's not as daunting as it may seem. There is some definitely processes and things we got to go through that we help to make that smooth move for you. But if you're thinking about Maine, if you want to know more about Maine, if you want to know what it's going to take to move here, drop me a line, send me an email, send me a text, give me a call. We can book a Zoom call, have a conversation about it. Guys, here to help. My name is Scott Tebow again. I'm a broker with EXP Realty. My team and I, we've helped people do this for the last many years. We actually help sellers a lot too, and investors. I get an investor, a couple guys that invest. One lives in California, one lives in Florida, and we've helped them with quite a few properties here in the last couple of years as well. So, hope this information was helpful, guys. If you want any more information, just reach out, and we'll talk to you soon. Scott Tebow, over and out. Bye bye.